Welcome back, everyone, to Tilt, Powering the New India, right here at EarthX, co-hosted by the Global Sustainable Action Alliance. What a powerful start to the day. The insights, the energy, the possibilities, they already set the bar high. But one big question still lingers. Can doing good also be profitable? And if it can, what does it really take to run an impact-focused business? Is it any different from the rest? That's exactly what this next panel will dive into, and you don't want to miss a word. Let's roll the tape. Right, please join me in welcoming Anupam Govil, Managing Partner, Avasant, President, Avasense, former Thai Global Board and Thai Austin President. Robert Switzer, Director and Founder of Astera. Roxy Mathew Koll, Climate Scientist, World Research Program, Indian Institute of Tropical Meteorology. With Kamal Fulani, Executive Director, U.S.-India Chamber of Commerce, DFW, moderating the panel.
Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you to Mr. Crow, to Rajan, and the entire EarthX team for setting this up. And Aditya, thank you very much for getting together powerful Indian American business leaders in one room to talk about topics that are so important. So as y'all saw in the video, we're going to talk about profit and purpose. What does that look like from a business standpoint? Businesses are so focused on making profit, right? That's the number one thing that businesses want to do, but on the second side of that is, what is your purpose as a business? And as you see the younger generation, as businesses attract young talent, you guys see, as our panelists will kind of tell y'all today, is this young talent wants to ensure that they work for a business that's profitable, but also has a strong purpose to what they're doing globally, domestically, whatever that may look like. So just to kind of point out a few stats on this. There was a recent NYU Stern study that says companies with a strong environmental and social impact missions see up to 60% higher consumer loyalty compared to those without. And then another stat, McKinsey did a study, and it mentioned companies integrating ESG into operations report up to 10% reduction in operating cost through energy savings, waste reduction, and supply chain efficiencies. And the last stat I want to point out from a PwC study, 70% of employees say they are more likely to stay long-term at a company with a clear purpose beyond profit. And we're going to see more and more of that, I think, as we move forward in the next 5 to 10 years, the more purpose that these companies are going to highlight. And then just a few examples. I want to share an example from India and then from Texas. From India, Gravika Labs, they're transforming carbon emissions from vehicles and chimneys to ink for printing. And then Ather Energy in India, they're building smart electric scooters and charging infrastructure. And right here in Texas, Universal Green Group, as some of you may met outside, they're delivering turnkey clean energy and EV infrastructure for vehicles, supply chain, and homes. And then Astera, they're using AI to optimize infrastructure for energy and waste management. So that's kind of the examples, laying the groundwork for our discussion today. Now what I'd like to do is delve into our panelists, delve into our discussion. We'll start with you, Anupam, and we'll go down. But can you each of you share your personal impact journeys and what brought you into this impact space and why you wanted to kind of highlight such an important mission? Anupam?
Sure. So first of all, my background is technology. I grew up in technology and then business and finance, and I'm a managing partner with Avasant, which is a global management consulting firm. When you grow in this sort of a career, the common perception is that you're working to generate profit for your shareholders. And profit and purpose seem to be like opposite,
Yep.
right? But that's not the reality. And over the course of last 20 years, I've realized they're really two sides of the same coin, profit and purpose. An awakening came to me about 20 years ago when I came across John Mackey, the founder of Whole Foods, which kind of completely changed this whole notion of people, profit, planet, right? And he had this initiative called Conscious Capitalism, where they talked about, how capitalism doesn't have to be just intended for the shareholders. In fact, it has to serve, first of all, your employees, your customers, your vendors and partners, your community, and of course, the planet.
Yep.
Right? So businesses that do that always end up having a much greater margin and sustainability over the long term, right? And Whole Foods has clearly shown that. So, through my company, Avasant, we advise companies on strategic investments in technology, in setting up centers of excellence around the world, and generating impact not just for the organizations, but in whichever region they operate, right? And that helps them in not only improving their brand and visibility and goodwill, but it also in return generates higher top line and margin growth. And we've seen that time and again prove true. So we can talk a little bit more about it as we go along.
Yeah. And then Robert, I know in California you probably see it more often than not with the purpose and profit going hand in hand.
Yeah, that's correct. So thank you very much for allowing me to be here. But I got connected to this through Global Green and Bill Bridge. Vered Nissim works with us in the company, but Astera is a renewable energy company. It's only about 3 years old. It started back when the Inflation Reduction Act was passed, and we put together a very strong team. And we found our way into a vertical technology that requires energy, so they go together. But when we're talking about impact and capital and the playbook, our impact that we feel is most demonstrative is basically our technology is conversion of plastics, industrial plastics, the type of plastics that aren't being addressed in recycling. And we call it conversion because we convert the plastic into carbon black materials, including graphene, graphite, and carbon nanotubes. And so, which can be then repurposed into other products that are renewable in nature. So we took a look at that technology, and then we took a close look at how to take it to market, and that's underway right now. So, the impact that we saw that was most notable in the plastics world is the fact that we were seeing microplastics in human beings. And so they're finding on autopsy quite a lot of plastics in the human brain. These microplastics are crossing the human brain barrier.
Even in human semen.
Yeah.
It does before.
And so there's some articles that describe as much as a spoon, the size of a spoon that you might stir your coffee with, inside of the human brain. They're not sure exactly what it's causing, but they think it's causing probably dementia and other forms of brain disorders. And so our impact is, number one, to address the industrial plastics. We don't want those in the landfill anymore, and we want to reverse what we think is happening. And there's an example, for example, asbestos. We really didn't know for 30 or 40 years what it did to the workers in the factories that were making asbestos, and in the field, in the construction field, when you're removing it for years. And I think personally that these plastics have been affecting the human being for some time. And so our impact is to make a difference worldwide. And when you look at India, the largest population in the world, I can imagine it's a real problem that's not yet exposed. So our impact is really to address that. We see it as a health issue inside of an environmental issue.
Are you seeing more, Robert, companies similar to what you're doing popping up now and trying to address some of these?
Well,
that's a tough issue, right, to really tackle that.
There's a lot of companies that are trying to address plastic waste. We don't want plastics in our landfill, but the reality is that 10% of plastics that we use wherever, personally or in business, is being addressed in true recycling. The rest is going into the landfill, and that's a fact. So it needs to be addressed.
Yeah.
And so is anybody else doing what we're doing? They're not doing it the way that we're doing it. Our technology, which is a pyrolysis by technical name, is not new, but we have a microwave designed technology together with a catalyst that's proprietary, and we haven't seen anybody else in the world doing what we're doing.
Nice. Roxy, can you share a few highlights for us?
Definitely. Wonderful work, Anupam and Robert. This is the reason why I'm here. I'm a climate scientist, and when I was invited to this session, I was feeling, am I the odd one out? Like Trammell was saying in the morning, climate everywhere. Does it make people, go away? I'm here to bridge the industries, the investors, the innovators with that climate space so that we can make a better future, so that we can convert those challenges to opportunities, because we have the resources to do that. India, most of South Asia, I would say, is a poster child for climate change, because we see one extreme weather event after another. And this put immense risk on whatever industries that we are working on, whatever innovation we are working on, and the infrastructure that we are placing in there, right? But there is one positive side. We have reached that stage where we can understand, monitor, and assess this risk. And we can quantify the uncertainty so that whatever infrastructure or industry that we place in there will provide us returns. And we can convert, transform our infrastructure and innovations in such a way that for every $1 spent, you get $5 to $10 in returns. It could be in avoided losses. It could be in returns. Yeah. So I see that potential for India. I see that potential for the US. And we have not tackled that space of climate intelligence. And that's why I'm here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for being here. Thanks to all of our panelists. So Anupam, your background, you've worked with corporations, and not large, but just on a very small, large, medium-sized corporations, and you do a lot with a lot of the leaders for those organizations. Can you talk about how they're approaching impact and this profit kind of how that plays into what you do?
Yeah. So again, there's been a continuum of, I would say, strategies that corporations have adopted over the years to make an impact or to embrace impact. It started off more as a CSR initiative, that it's something they're doing it just for goodwill. They set up a separate CSR wing, and that's funding some of these impact activities, initiatives. Then it became a bit of a regulatory mandate where, okay, you got to comply with certain ESG standards and get to a certain goal, whether it's net zero or what have you, and then your policies, your investments are governed by that. But to me, the real driver for impact investments and any kind of an impact initiative that corporations launch needs to be an economic imperative, which means, yes, there is a goodwill. Yes, there is also a mandate from a compliance standards perspective, but really the biggest driver should be top line and profitable growth. So I think that shift has been happening over the last decade or so. And what we're seeing is companies are not only assigning chief sustainability officers and chief impact officers, but also they have been, even from their product value chain perspective, from their go-to-market perspective, they're putting on the veneer of, okay, that our products and offerings, they really drive this certain impact within the communities at large, right? So that change has been accelerating over the years, and I think it has been sort of embedded in every aspect of some of these corporations. Now, I'm not saying everybody has gotten there, of course not, but it's definitely in the right direction. And even some of the big, so-called polluters, the big oil and energy companies, right? They've all been transforming over the last decade into companies that drive energy and shifting their mix towards more renewable energy. So that's really, I think, a natural evolution. And one of the big accelerants now that we're seeing is really through technology and specifically through AI, because you're able to amplify the effect of your impact significantly more by leveraging AI in the right way.
Yeah.
And I know we'll dive into that a little bit more, but India, I think, is the best place to do that.
Yeah,
I see India as the world's largest incubator for innovation, but also the world's largest market at the same time, which is pretty unique. They're very eager to embrace innovative ideas, and especially around impact investments.
And the human resources,
Yeah.
the skills,
So coming to you, Robert, can you talk about the clean tech journey and y'all's approach to that? And specifically, I guess also, can you touch on some of the sources of funding of deep tech and tech innovations and business operations?
Sure. So I'm going to touch upon something that we're not using in the plastic conversion model, but we looked closely at the Inflation Reduction Act and tax credits, and that the tax credits were nothing new, but there were new features about it. And so some of our projects here in the United States have been funded through credit lines basically created based on tax credits and how to do that. And one of the things we did, and we were told we were one of the first ones that had done it, is that we got an insurance policy through AIG that wrapped our credit line, and credit enhanced the situation because the tax credits are prospective in nature and you can't transfer them until you're placed in service. And without going into all those details, we were one of the first ones, as we were told, at least by AIG and their attorneys, that this structure that we had utilized was quite novel. So we did that right out of the gate. But we looked at how to roll out this technology that we're talking about right now, the plastic conversions technology, and how to manage the capital and how to go about that. And ultimately, what we decided is, if we wanted to move quickly, is we decided that we're involved in a revenue share model where our it's private capital, family office or things of that nature, not necessarily institutional money or bank capital. So we have a revenue share model, okay? So at the top line on gross revenue, we share revenue with the investor, and at the bottom line, the net revenue at the end of the year, paid out in quarterly increments to the operators that we get into partnerships with. In other words, we have an investor who's passive, not necessarily active, who's invested in a location, and then we have an operator who's going to partner with us on the bottom line. So it's very simple. And if anyone's familiar with carbon black materials, including graphene, it's very lucrative. Our margins are tremendous. We have really very minimal cost of goods sold. It doesn't, you don't have to pay a lot for plastic waste. And if you have a few machines, not just one, you're saving on your G&A, your general administrative expenses to operate. So when you look at our bottom line, our returns are 30 to 50% at the bottom line. The investor comes in at the top line. They're basically repaid in 30 months. And it's a very good model, and the technology lasts 15 years or more with proper maintenance. So we chose that model, and it's something that works very rapidly. And it's not it's not one investor; it can be many investors. So our platform opens it up to many different investors, individuals, and it's sort of a fractionalization approach, if you want to put a word on it. So that's what we decided to do. It's working well.
Wow.
So on a related point, I mean, what's not commonly realized is impact investment as its own asset class is one of the fastest growing asset classes, and has one of the highest alpha as well. It's going to reach about $1 trillion, I think, maybe this year or next year globally.
Yeah.
And so again, for whether you're a corporate or an institution, pension fund, impact investment is definitely becoming a more and more important part of your investment portfolio.
It is, and I think hopefully we see more of that, more companies like what y'all are doing, as Trammell has mentioned over and over, make Texas the hub of some of these initiatives. So if you want to come on over to Texas, Robert, we're welcome you with
We're on our way.
Open arms.
We're on our way. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Roxy, with your background in the educational field and in specifically climate science, can you kind of, I guess, see some of the most urgent and investable opportunities in the climate resilience space? Can you kind of touch on that, what you're seeing internationally, even in India, and then what you're kind of seeing through your studies in the U.S.?
Definitely. I would pick up on where Anupam left a little while ago. I would say while India is climate vulnerable, it's also a climate innovation hub as well. Yeah, and this has got to do a lot with what we can do for India and Texas as well. We were talking about Texas as this example of renewables, and the Consul General today was saying that India is the third largest renewable energy economy and growing fast as well. But at the same time, I would like to point out that India, the coal imports for India actually increased in the recent years, which means that demand for power and energy is actually increasing. So we have that space to expand and scale up that renewable energy resources and capacity for India. That's a wonderful opportunity where we can work together. I heard about a lot of examples in the morning panels. Yeah, and if you look at the challenges, so that's from the mitigation point of view. It helps the climate mitigation as well. Now, if you look at the challenges point of view, especially on land and all, rising heat is a major challenge for India. Yeah, I would say rising heat, rising returns as well, because if you look at the penetration of cooling, for example, space cooling with air conditioning and all, the penetration in India is only 9%. To put it in perspective, for US, it's about 90%. And this demand for cooling in India is expanding, it's intensifying. And you can think about temperatures reaching 104 to 122 Fahrenheit. Yeah? And all these people need cooling. And how to provide that sustainable cooling from renewable energy resources. That is something we can work on, maybe along with digital innovation, which will make sure that it's energy efficient as well. That's just one example from the land point of view. I work with coastal systems and ocean systems as well. Another opportunity would be seaweed. We call it the blue gold. Yeah. Whether you talk about future food, agriculture, fertilizer,
building materials.
Yeah, packaging, nutraceuticals, where it provides nutrition and also health benefits. Yeah, and with such a vast coastline and tropical conditions, this is a perfect fertile area for seaweed cultivation. That's one example. And put it all together with all the artificial intelligence and digital innovation that we are talking about. You can, and we, as climate researchers, climate modelers, we prepare those models which can provide early warnings and also future risk assessments, so that whatever innovation, whatever scaling up of those renewables or seaweed or your heating, you need to know how much of cooling that you require in the next 10 years. And you need to identify those hotspots. And we have the resources to assess those requirements and also provide quantifications for the uncertainties, how it will change. Yeah? So with all that together, we can have much more returns from these investments. Yeah. So that's a beautiful story to look ahead.
Go ahead, Anupam.
Yeah, so I guess I just wanted to emphasize a point which the previous speakers, Arun and the Consul General, all really talked about, which is India is a land of contradictions.
Yeah.
On one hand, obviously they're the fastest growing market for coal power plants. They put in 5 gigawatts of coal power capacity just in the last year.
Exactly.
That's because they have to reach a certain power goal.
Yeah.
At the same time, India has also set an aggressive net zero target of 2030 and a target of 500 gigawatts through renewable sources by 2030, which, by the way, they're already well on the way. They reached 2,000 gigawatts last year. And not only that, they have the world's largest solar plant. I think we were talking about it in Rajasthan. They're building the world's largest green power plant, or green park, they call it, in Gujarat, which is by the Adani Group. It's going to be a complex the size of the city of Paris with solar, wind, geothermal, and what have you. But the opportunity to come into India and invest in these sectors is just like never before. Not only that, the way it kind of comes back to AI, I want to kind of close that loop. AI is, of course, a great solution for managing grid variability and power consumption and so on. But AI also consumes enormous amounts of power because it has to be powered by huge data centers.
And I don't think people really take note. I think they're starting to notice it, but I don't think they did.
Well, that's
so the genius of India, I would say, I don't want to pick on one group, which here in this case is the Adani Group, is the fact that they're actually placing the world's largest data park also around the same green park facility. That means those data centers are going to be powered through green energy. Reliance Group is doing the same, by the way. Reliance Group, which is India's largest industrial house, is building the world's largest data center. It's going to be a 5 gigawatt data center. It is beyond comprehension how big that's going to be. So again, my point is India, I think, is trying to find that balance between growth and sustainability. And that's where there is room for tremendous investments, transfer of technology, and trade.
So as
between Texas and India.
Yeah, and as we could keep talking about this topic for a good bit, but as we close out here, speaking of the returns, I think you guys have all the ROI on this. So I want to kind of end with this for each of you. Do each of you still believe that operating impactful companies can generate attractive returns, especially in this climate, in this, we have a new administration now. People are uncertain, but do y'all still, what are your thoughts on that? Anupam, anybody want to close out?
I don't think there's any alternative to that. I think not only has it been proven time and again that it does generate high returns and goodwill, but I think that's the future. Companies have to factor in the cost of climate change and the impacts, whether it's due to weather phenomena or other aspects of climate change. So that has to be factored into the cost of doing business, and ultimately that's obviously passed on to the consumer. So the more you adopt impact-based technologies and investments and initiatives, that's going to be the long-term success for your business. And again, to me, the whole emergence of generative AI has actually provided that critical tool that the companies needed. Because AI is an incredible amplifier for whatever you do. It's one of the most prudent investments that you can put in, right? The way I look at it is we've gone through 3 ages. We had the industrial age where you basically connected physical technologies to create factories and systems, infrastructure. Then you had the digital age where you had connectivity through internet and bandwidth and so on. Now you have the age of intelligence, where AI is going to provide that overlaying architecture to further evolve your companies to the next level, to be able to harness the opportunity, to be able to be sustainable, and also to do good for your shareholders.
Yep. Robert, any last words?
Well, no, I do think timeliness is everything, and the emerging market in India is obviously massive. And on our particular production of graphene, again, if you're aware, it's being studied, and it's going to be in semiconductors, it's going to be in computers, it's going to be in batteries. A lot of the largest companies are already implementing it. And so we know we're in the right space. So we have that timeliness as far as our company goes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I agree with all of you here. And my last words would be that the better we understand our risk, the better we can frame our solutions so that our returns are also better, our profits are better, and we can frame our agriculture, our industries, infrastructure, everything for a better future. And we have the resources to do that. We have the resources, we have the capacity, we just need to put everything together. We have the people also.
Yeah.
We need to come together like this, talk like this, and make sure that this works. Yeah? And it's possible for us.
Can I make a plug?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I'm also a film producer, and one of my ambitions was to produce a documentary on climate change, which thankfully is premiering here.
Yeah. It's premiering here?
Yeah, we're going to be having a teaser of it running through a loop to the EarthX conference.
What's the name?
Rejuvenation Nation.
There you go.
It's focusing on regenerative agriculture, how you can capture carbon back into the soil through the right crops and right practices, and also, improve your whole biodiversity.
Get into seaweed also. It can capture 5 times more carbon than land-based agriculture.
Yep, absolutely. So I encourage you all to check it out.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Well, thank you to the three of you so much for being here, for sharing your insights. I hope the attendees and the audience had a chance to really learn a little bit more about profit and purpose and the important intersection of what that looks like. So thank you all very much. Thank you, Anupam, Robert, and Roxy for being here.
Thanks, Kamal.
Yep.
Thank you.
Awesome.